It's my privilege right now to introduce from Gartner a gentleman who has a great job. I mean, an absolutely fantastic job. He has started the Gartner Fellows Program and is a vice president of research. But his core duty is to study emerging technologies, emerging trends, and to learn about them and to then promote that knowledge out into the broader marketplace. Now, what Nayaki just did for us is she's kind of framed Internet of Things for us. She said, look, it's not about the things that you can connect to, it's about the outcomes that you're trying to drive to. What Mr. Daryl Plummer is going to do is help us understand here in Atlanta and the region, what are the things that we need to do now within that context. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd like you to welcome Daryl Plummer from Gartner.
Thank you, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. It looks like it's going to be a great day for you. Going to have a little fun. Now, the Internet of Things is one of those topics that comes along and everyone's talking about it, it seems, overnight. Now, as a person who focuses on digitalization, digital disruptors, emerging trends, I am always on that front edge of the wave where things are coming along. And I am a chief of research for cloud computing, for instance. And I remember way back when I started this, about 2006, we started with our cloud computing research. Back then, nobody really knew what it was. Nobody had thought about it very much. And I remember I visited my sister in Fort Lauderdale. I was at her house, and she always asked me what I'm doing these days. And we were out in her front yard, and I said, you know, well, I'm covering this thing called cloud computing. And she took a look at me. She looked up at the sky. She looked back at me, and she said, you made that up. I said, yeah, I did. The reality is that she didn't know what it was, and she had no context for understanding why she would ever care. But now comes the Internet of Things. I go to that same house and same sister, and she says, what are you talking about now? And I said, the Internet of Things. And she says, oh, you mean like my Fitbit? And people seem to know. They seem to know that there are these connected devices out there that they're going to interact with that might give them information about themselves. How many people here wear a fitness tracking device of some kind? A significant number. All the people who are runners and who exercise regularly are the ones that wear them, right? Because we have people who love those kinds of things. Now here, understand what this device is. This is a device that will tell you exactly how much exercise that you're not getting. It will tell you when to get up and go do something. And as in the last examples, it can be significant to our healthcare, to our lifestyle, and to the longevity of our ability to do things in the world. So the Internet of Things matters not just in the big ways for manufacturing, but also to people in a personal way. And that's a very important thing that people seem to understand. So the Internet of Things is coming, it's coming at us, and the reality is that most businesses and models are still very much immature. They're in their infancy. There are still questions about what we should do to support this. How will it actually be used? When will it be the most important things on our list? And yet, some industries and enterprises are already giving us lessons. We've seen the examples, you'll see more of them today, where we talk about the use of the Internet of Things to do almost anything. Because clearly one of the things that's key here is that these connected devices can gather data and provide us a view of the world which transcends the physical and the virtual. Now understand that phrase, transcending the physical and the virtual. Let's say it a different way, blurring the distinction between what is physical in the world and what is virtual. When you have sensors on everything, and you have devices that can be controlled remotely, you have ability to create a virtual image of that physical world, which you can now make decisions on and act on remotely. This means that undersea exploration gets better. It means that managing a mining site gets better. It means that managing crops will get better because the Internet of Things allows us to interact at a level which before was difficult to do. Now, many industries have used operational technology for quite some time. They understand how devices work to actually be able to perform manufacturing processes in an automated fashion. But now everything will be connected. Everything can be automated. And the reality is that some industries and some geographical regions of the world have recognized we need to do something about that. Now, many of you may have heard of Industry 4.0. You've probably done something with it. And in the German region, in Germany, the DACH region actually, they are absolutely supporting this notion of this fourth industrial revolution. They're supporting it by saying that no one company should go alone, that we have to create a network of companies that can share all that information gathered, that can use common processes to actually deal with that information, and that can supply value to one another throughout an ecosystem, a value chain that is ever expanding. So when we talk about that kind of support, we're now talking about what we can do as a region. Now, if I were to say the Eiffel Tower, if I were to say the Orly Museum, if I were to say Champs-Élysées, what am I talking about? If I were to say a lot of traffic, a giant rock with something carved on it, and a building with the word Coca-Cola on top of it, what am I talking about? Well, we know this, right? So when I say that in Paris, however, they don't know it's Atlanta. And they're not as familiar with this region as we are with their region, because they have been around and built monuments to their history. Atlanta has been about people performing, building an efficient society, about building a place where business can grow and thrive. Now it's time for us to take that into the virtual world as well. For Atlanta to say that we're ready to mirror what they do in Germany. We're ready to start creating an environment with network connectivity, creating an environment with data sharing, with creating an environment where businesses come here to take advantage of the Internet of Things. That's our challenge. That's the place where we need to go to be able to take this to the next level. So what is the IoT? Most of you know. Now, Gartner talks about this thing we call digital business. And digital business is when businesses take advantage of digitalization. Now, notice I said digitalization, not digitization. Digitalization is accessorizing your business with digital assets, capabilities, and channels. And that allows you to be able to take advantage of the data coming from the Internet of Things, to be able to control sensors and devices, to be able to use relays to actuate physical world events. And digital business, therefore, takes advantage of this merging, this blurring of the physical and the virtual world across three primary axes. One, people. Two, business. And three, things. Because we are trying to say that those three things will interact the most in providing value from this digital revolution that we're in. People are the ones that are being affected. We're learning more today about the Internet of Things from consumer behavior than we are from enterprise behavior. People are taking advantage of these devices. Many of those devices today look like toys, but they actually provide a learning lesson to allow us to change our thinking and our culture to embrace this kind of connectivity. Business, of course, will take advantage of it, and the things themselves will continue to grow. Our prediction is that by 2021, 1 million new things connected to the internet will be sold every hour of every day. Imagine that volume of connectivity. Now, John Chambers once said, there's not enough network bandwidth within the world to move all the data around that the Internet of Things can create. They'll solve that problem. But the reality is that we have to recognize those devices will be in our presence even if we don't know it. Those devices are an opportunity that we must reach for, because that opportunity will be the opportunity of the future. So we've seen it, from beer kegs and taps that will tell you how much you're drinking, how much has been used, whether it's fresh or it's been changed recently. We will go further and further. We'll get into saving money and perhaps lives. The examples are all over the place. Insurance companies are talking about a 17% decline in their costs because they're able to serve customers who are using things like smart scales to tell when they may have gained weight, which triggers another process activity to suggest that they may need to do something, alerts their Epic medical record online, and the doctors can see, hey, this person's behavior is not in line with what we'd like to see. Certainly that's where the Internet of Things can help us. It can grow our ability to serve people. And that gives us the opportunity to reduce cost and to maximize our investments. So when we talk about this Internet of Things, we're talking about, this is a radiation sensor. We're talking about building an ecosystem an ecosystem of companies, of people, customers, and data which will consistently grow, that will allow us to activate decisions based on the actions of machines, devices, the environment that's around us. We can then start thinking about the scale of that. How many things can we support? Can we keep up with all the things that connected devices can do? Here's an example. I keep thinking about this one, that right now we're getting connected cars. If you bought a new car, it's connected to something, right? There are probably 75 CPUs in that car, and it's connected to something. So you know your car tells you when it's time to go get service, yes? The lights flash, you ignore them for 3 months, right? What's coming is you'll ignore them for 3 months, then the car will send you an email saying, hey, the light's been flashing for 3 months, you need to do something. If you ignore that, the car will call the dealership and schedule an appointment for itself. And if you ignore that, the car will drive itself to the dealership, get the service done, and maybe come home. You want to make millions? Invest in car leashes. Because otherwise you're going to come out one day ready to go to work, your car is gone. Connectivity can really spawn some interesting scenarios. And being able to support those scenarios requires us to understand we have to track these connected things. We have to understand where that data is being used and what it's doing for us overall. And of course, we have to deal with heterogeneity. We're going to have many, many different kinds of devices, old and new. The industrial Internet of Things. Now, many of you have probably heard of the GE Predicts platform. Some of you may be with GE. They call it a social network for machines. Who would have thought machines need a social network, right? Now, this is something that says that we are personalizing those things. We're personalizing them because they are acting more and more like us. They are giving us the ability to see into an efficient mode of operation when machines share data at a very fast rate. They can say the turbine's wearing at a rate that is faster than we expected, that a server is going to fail. And these things allow us to be able to create scenarios which were hard for us to do as mere flesh and blood. Clearly, it's an opportunity. Now, in our hype cycle for the Internet of Things, if you look at the top, our hype cycle basically says something new gets introduced, then it spikes to a peak of inflated expectations where everyone says it's going to solve, all problems of the world. Then when we realize it's not, it drops off to a trough of disillusionment, and then it rises up a more practical slope of productivity. Right now, the Internet of Things as a whole is right at the peak of that inflated expectation. Those who are excited about it may get a little overexcited about it. And we're thinking that the Internet of Things can solve many problems, but actually it will spawn more problems than it solves initially. So we have to be ready. How do you deal with it? How do you help people collect, analyze, disseminate, and work with all of that data? It blurs the physical and the real world. I can have a virtual image of a tractor that's all about the data around the tractor. Where is it? How fast is it moving? How many loads has it carried? How much has it lifted? All those bits of information are a way for tying myself into the physical world much more effectively. So why should you care? Why should you care about this? Well, you're here, you obviously care. But when we think about it, we have to realize that we can go beyond just interest in a new trend. That we actually can start thinking of this as an enabler for digital business. And I would suggest this, because there are two focal points in the Internet of Things. When you think about it, one of them is a focus on business, and the other is a focus on technology. A focus on business versus a focus on technology. These have to come together because we cannot allow the technology to lead to places where the outcomes are less important. Understand that phrase. I heard it earlier. Outcomes are more important now than the technology. It's what you can do with the technology. And different roles in your organization might support the use of that technology for different reasons. So board members are going to care about those outcomes more than technology roles in your IT department, architects. Technology providers want to sell you technology, but they want to sell it so you can solve certain problems. Now here's the thing that gets added. Look out to the right. Where's the governor? Where's the state legislature? Where is the mayor, the city council, and the business leaders? They have to come into this because they are the ones that will create a fresh underlayment for business to thrive using the technology of the Internet of Things. They are the ones who will put in place the policies that allow us to protect the information and the privacy of people connected to them. Now, we've all got smartphones, yes? Anyone here still got a BlackBerry? You're never going to raise your hand when I ask it that way. We've all got smartphones. Some of us probably have two, right? Some of us have two. Those devices are tracking your location at all times. So you have to think about, well, do you want it to track your location? That's a privacy issue. What happens when your tie clip? What happens when your clothing? What happens when your shoes are tracking you as well? Is your privacy at risk? Are there policies in your region to support stronger privacy? In Germany, there are. In Germany, in fact, there's so much privacy protection that it can actually hurt business. So they created an Industry 4.0 initiative partly to help with dealing with privacy issues without breaking the law. Can we do that here? Can we begin to think about the privacy of people and the freedom of people to act in accordance to what technology allows them to do? Now, we all know it. Now, I'll ask you another question. Anybody here got Pokemon Go? I'm looking around because I haven't seen anybody looking for Pokemon in the room. They're always like this, you know. We can use any technology that does phenomenal things. Phenomenal things. You can buy a supercomputer equivalent to a Cray 1985 Cray supercomputer for $35 right now, the NVIDIA TX1. This is a world where the options are wide open, but the protections are not well defined. They're not well established. Where do we go? How does a business deal with the legality of the Internet of Things? That has to be decided in a region. That has to be implemented in a region. And once you do that, you're taking the next step. So yes, you've got digital business, and you've got IoT feeding this digital business. And we are able then to create processes in our community that allows us to take advantage of it. So it affects all of us, right? The head office, it affects the back office, it affects the front office. There's no part of a business that can escape the IoT tsunami. It's going to wash over us, and we have to be ready to survive it. When we talk about things like security, we have to talk about, are we ready for the influx of different points of network entry that are inside our firewalls? Because when someone brings a connected device into work, they bring it inside your firewalls. Are your guest networks ready? Are you able to identify those devices? Are you able to isolate them or segment them in any way to keep you safer? Is that something you want to do when they're on the street, driving in a car, in a public park? Because all the connectivity doesn't stop when they get in those places. The Internet of Things is here. It is making us more effective, efficient, and potentially will save us money. But we have to know exactly how we're going to allow it to do that. So when we talk about this thing, we advise using 5 IoT usage models to express business value. Okay? The first one is optimization. Asset optimization and monitoring and predictive maintenance. Now when you talk about industrial IoT, that's a key part of the success criteria, is are you able to actually use the equipment more efficiently or effectively because of this Internet of Things connectivity? Are you able to do predictive analysis to know when it needs to be upgraded or before it breaks down? Those types of issues are well defined for those types of industries. In our more broad-ranging industries, whether it be government or finance, you begin to look at this and you start saying, there are the same kinds of things to do there. We have now the blockchain. The blockchain, shared database technology that allows us to create a shared ledger, shared transactions for financial interaction, leading to potentially cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. You don't need Bitcoin, but the idea is that in financial services, we now have this connectivity of devices that will actually lead to stronger, more frequent financial transactions. Here's how this works. You go to a Best Buy. You want to buy a device. You walk up to the device on the shelves and you go, oh, this is the one I want. You take a picture of it with your phone. Your phone then asks all the devices that you have at home whether this device you're looking at is compatible with it. When the answer comes back, the phone says to you, this device is not compatible with 75% of the devices you have at home. However, if you turn around, there's one behind you that does. And if you want to buy it, we can start a credit line for you right here and right now through the store. All because of that connectivity, we can fire off processes that we don't think of as thing related. And it allows us to begin changing our financial model. So yes, there are ways of taking advantage of efficiency in a model that doesn't have anything to do with industry, mechanics, manufacturing, or robotics. And all of these models lead us in those directions. Usage-based models, pay-as-you-go, or pay-as-you-use connectivity, pay-as-you-gather data, or building. Operational models, remote control. I want to see smart robots exploring the oceans, but human beings will have to take control at some point. Remote control is a key aspect of the Internet of Things. Extending your environment through connected things, helping them to gather information that you couldn't get easily. I see the day coming when a chemical company doesn't have to send analysts out into the field to be able to check whether crops are responding well to the latest pesticides. That instead, the crops will tell them because of connected devices strewn throughout the field, sensor dust, if you will, that will tell them, are the bugs being killed? Are the right bugs being killed? Are the plants growing well? This extends their capabilities. And then lastly, experience. The idea of enhancing the customer experience is a key thing. I started by talking about people. My sister knows what a Fitbit is. And now she's asking me how she can enhance her experience in retail, how she can enhance her experience in finance, and she happens to be an insurance adjuster, so she wants to know how she can enhance her experience in denying your claim. I didn't say it was all going to be good, but it is an opportunity that we must relish, that we can take advantage of. I want to thank you all very much for listening, and I encourage you to grow as you go. Take care.